Hello, I am Brigadier General Retired Jeffrey Horne, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. The National Chamber of Commerce Foundation and I deeply appreciate you taking the time to invest in options to improve your workforce, improve your productivity, and yes, even improve your profit and loss statement by hiring and retaining veterans, National Guard members, and reservists. My experience on this issue comes from over 30 years in the military in various leadership roles, training young people in large organizations to fight America's wars, as well as in program management, research and development, manufacturing, and product development. Most notably, I've spent the last 8 years bringing veterans and industry together to find the strengths and mutual benefits of working together in these hiring programs. We've helped thousands of veterans transition from hospitals, combat, and routine military assignments into some of the most sought-after careers in the nation. One of my biggest lessons is that hiring those with experience in the military will improve your company's performance, increase your financial returns, improve your bench talent, and yes, in fact, improve morale. Americans love to be around the military, especially during time of war. I've also learned, like all things with these returns, success requires strength, courage, education. Today, it will help you with that endeavor, enable you to build and become the subject matter expert on veteran hiring in your organization. So we have lots of great information, lots of ground to cover, so let's get started. On the next chart, our discussion focuses on the objectives for today. We will help you determine the right reasons for hiring veterans, not just creating a program out of a sense of duty, but for all the business reasons that your stockholders admire. We will discuss the business rationale for hiring veterans, and we'll discuss contracting guidance that has changed in recent months with regard to veteran hiring practices and disabilities. We'll discuss these updates, compliance reporting, and the details of who is affected. Lastly, we'll provide a detailed 4-step process and a set of references to create a solid, award-winning program on how to gain some quick wins with a reasonable level of investment. We'll discuss a relatively simple 4-step process of creating a veteran recruiting and retention program that harvests the best leadership of talent in the world and the kind of talent you need to be able to mold the technical workforce that you desire. Oftentimes, it can be funded by the U.S. government and post-911 GI Bill. This extends your training budget and provides a good return on investment. Have fun with this. You'll enjoy it, and you can make a difference. And you'll also enjoy the notoriety of becoming that corporate expert. In terms of a business case, we'll get you past the ringing words such as corporate responsibility, appreciation, thankfulness, and Americans owe it to those that have protected their freedom that often flutter into conversations in this regard. All these thoughts are valuable and they're important, but they're not necessarily a business case. Your corporate leaders, your board of directors, your stockholders need to see the dollars and cents reasons to invest in veterans programs. And it does take an investment, often minimal, but investment nevertheless. Let's be honest, you really shouldn't enter the field of veteran recruiting if you're not willing to put a little time and education and leader investment into your hiring managers, as well as strengthen your corporate programs, inform your recruiters, just to name a few. However, your corporate bottom line and your productivity will benefit faster than any other investment. On the next chart, we talk about some of the facts associated with military talent pool and supply channels. This picture speaks to where military members live and where they come from, the size of the talent pool of active duty members, and in general, the size of the pool available to you in your geographic region. You see that California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, and Michigan have some of the highest densities of veterans today. The supply channel for potential employees that have military experience is comprised of 2 major groups: veterans and National Guard members that have never served on federal deployment status. These men and women have met the same physical, mental, and training standards as their active duty peers, but because they haven't served at least 30 days on active duty, they are not referred to in a federal sense as being veterans. It doesn't make them any lesser quality of an employee. It doesn't make them a lesser military member. Just that they may not meet the veteran contracting and benefit standards called for in federal law. So let's discuss active duty members. There are roughly 1.2 million men and women on active duty today. There are nearly 20 million veterans in America today, with over 12 million in today's workforce. Estimates regarding how many are available, meaning searching, underemployed, or unemployed, vary widely, and in a general sense, hover around 5.8% today. However, when you look at men and women under the age of 30, the numbers go into double-digit categories very quickly. Regarding National Guard members, there are nearly 700,000 serving members in the Army and Air National Guard today, and tens of thousands serving in the reserves. There are millions that have departed State National Guard service as well over the last 10 or 15 years that are currently in the workforce. As you might know, most National Guardsmen are on state status and they only work several days a month, which means they're in your neighborhoods, your regions, your communities, and they work active jobs every day. Many of them are underemployed because of the demands that have been put upon them during the last 14 years of war. I think we can do better than that. Careers that have been interrupted immensely during that period, with over 760,000 individual active duty mobilizations to fight the war on terrorism. Understanding these definitions and including all members of the armed forces increases the size of the available hiring pool, but it also gives you a greater opportunity to hire people from your locality. So what is the difference between veterans, active duty members, and Americans that have served in uniform in the National Guard? Formally, in the eyes of the government, a veteran is a person that served active duty military or been placed on active federal status at least for 30 days sometime during their career. In some states, that number varies. Sometimes it goes up to 180 days. But in any case, federal activation is required, and it can occur for a host of reasons, ranging from deployment into other states for disaster assistance, to deployment into war zones such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, or for other humanitarian services around the world. Federal contracting and recruiting guidelines are generally directed to military members that meet these categories of service. Additionally, each state offers their own additional benefits and tax advantages based on these additional factors. These guidelines pertain to individual benefits, vice corporate compliance issues. It always pays good benefit to research these opportunities, as it can provide free services, education, healthcare benefits, and other areas that can reduce corporate costs by bringing those with military experience into the company and using these dollars to defray your costs. Hiring members of the Reserve and National Guard or those with general military experience provide employers with the same leadership traits, experiences, culture as those of their active duty brethren. It also allows you to support these military members that are right from your community in your local area that often protect your families and provide electricity and other type services to you during storm and strife, as well as those that have served to protect your freedoms around the world. If you include all members of the military service, you will see the numbers on this chart nearly double in size for your available talent pool. Just be aware they come with the same benefits and tax advantages. On the next chart, we talk about benefits and challenges. It's hard to find companies or executives that fail to say that they support veteran hiring practices. However, they are often asked in detail why they feel that it's important to hire veterans, and sometimes they have a difficult time laying out the exact reason. Often this challenge is driven by lack of experience and knowledge on the subject. You see, not nearly as many people have served in uniform today as during the times of our forefathers. And all volunteer force has changed the percentage of people that have that type of experience. And that translates into a lack of knowledge. That knowledge can be easily dealt with by some basic training practices. The high side is you don't have to search very far to find solid rationale, studies, surveys, stories that can help you build that right business reason and background information for your senior leaders, and also one to build your program. Many universities, colleges, and associations have generated seminal work in this area. Generally, these characteristics and personal attributes bubble to the top as strong rationale for hiring veterans and those with military experience. Similarly, the challenges we indicate here always seem to top the list as to why less than 60% of companies have actually created veteran hiring programs. Oftentimes, it's just a lack of understanding of the characters and attributes and a willingness to engage in a conversation of the challenges that are associated with bringing those veterans into the workforce. Using a discussion such as that's on this chart enables people to talk freely and to open the discussion. It breaks down barriers and helps people put the pros and cons together in one picture to enable you to really have a good conversation within the company. Approaching it this way helps you to align veteran hiring programs with specific corporate values and social mores. This particular list is a combination of work from several major research projects, including work from Prudential Insurance, Harvard University, Syracuse University, and the AP. All have completed exceptional work in this area. Specifically, academic research from the fields of business, psychology, sociology, and decision-making strongly link veteran skills to enhance performance and organizational advantages and overall organizational performance for a competitive and dynamic business environment. In other words, when we compare veterans to non-veterans, we find that the research supports a robust, specific, and compelling business case for hiring individuals with military background and experience. On the next chart, we talk a little bit about some of those challenges that we just mentioned. Post-traumatic stress is generally portrayed to be the elephant in the room, the thing that people are least likely to want to discuss, but is most likely to create a rationale for not bringing veterans into the workforce. So why is this the case? Recent surveys indicate that there may be an unsaid concern about wartime experiences and the general effects of trauma arising from military service. The various outbreaks of violence across the nation and mass shootings heighten that concern. There is very little, if any, correlation whatsoever. It's just a perception. But perceptions have to be dealt with. Specifically, employers see possible post-traumatic stress from combat as a reason not to hire a war veteran. 42% of those in the poll said that post-traumatic stress is a major negative factor for employers seeking to hire a vet. While these corporations and leaders agreed that military experience brings value both to the company and to the veterans, these veterans are often ill-prepared to communicate on the detail necessary that they feel they need to on their level of personal involvement. Nearly 50% of companies have a very hard time translating military skills. It serves as the second most viable reason that companies have a difficult time hiring veterans. They just don't understand what they do. Self-marketing by a veteran, by an active duty member, by a National Guardsman is generally frowned upon while you're in uniform in the military. People are not encouraged to do so. And this cultural trait adds to the veteran's inability or unwillingness to brag on their successes as well. Military transition programs don't teach business terms such as profit and loss, business development, return on sales, profit margins to our transitioning veterans. Much less they don't teach the troops to translate their accomplishments into this language and sometimes into their resumes. So what to do then? In general, we suggest that there's a three-step process: educate, communicate, and take action. Under the educate perspective, you can do a little research to bring in subject matter experts in your local region to discuss trauma and post-traumatic stress as part of professional development for the leadership personnel in your company. You might want to know that post-traumatic stress is fully recoverable. There are specific steps you can take to help someone with a budding problem in the workplace on any given day. Create the right atmosphere by learning more about the military culture and creating intersects between that and your corporate values, profit line, and technical needs adds additional value. Establish veteran affinity groups to discuss the issues before, during, and after you hire military. Let your self-identified veterans review your employee assistance programs or EAP programs and see what they think. See if they have any suggestions. Under the communicate category, you can create intranet and internet discussions to get people talking. Establish a hiring manager and an executive speaker series. You can discuss the issues of the day and how the company can benefit from getting involved. Set goals, monitor the goals, and achieve them, and then communicate those successes. Under the take action category, even if you don't create a veteran or military hiring program, decide to make a difference in your community. Word will travel. You'll find veterans come to you without even being recruited. Your community will see you as a corporate leader committed to making real progress and supporting veteran issues, not just a flag waver. Your people will enjoy the process. They will enjoy seeing their company out front. It's a win-win solution. On the next chart, we discuss the awareness of new government guidelines. So we've talked about the voluntary rationale for a solid business case for hiring those with military experience. But what are the new government guidelines? What are the compliance requirements, especially if you're interested in winning federal contracts? So a couple of quick questions. Does your business have contracts with the federal government today? Do you hope to become a federal contractor in the future? Do you hope to win more than $100,000 of federal contract work? Are you familiar with the Office of Federal Contract and Compliance Programs, or OFCCP, and the VEVRA provisions that originated back during the Vietnam War? The definition of VEVRA is on the chart, as well as OFCCP. These two acts create guidelines associated with affirmative action relating to veteran hiring practices. If you answered yes to the questions that we mentioned above, it's vitally important that you're able to answer yes to the last questions as well. If you answered no to questions 3 and 4, you're not alone. Many do not know exactly what the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs does, nor its significance to their business. No one wants to recruit veterans for compliance reasons. But nevertheless, you should be prepared to make that decision actively and not find out about it after you've chosen to do business with the government and you find yourself disqualified. Both of these laws, in general, are not compliance related, but more of a voluntary nature to get you involved in the process and to understand methods and rationale on how to better involve yourself in the veteran effort. That may change in future years. VEVRA prohibits federal contractors and subcontractors from discriminating in employment against protected veterans and requires these employers to take affirmative action to recruit, hire, promote, and retain these veterans. The new rule strengthens the affirmative action approach of the regulations to aid contractors in their efforts to recruit and hire protected veterans and improve job opportunities for those same veterans. There are 4 major categories of protected veterans, and they are identified on the chart. On the next chart, we discuss a little bit more about the specifics of what's changed. The new regulations became effective on March 24, 2014. However, contractors with a written affirmative action program that is already in place on the effective date have additional time to come into compliance. That may change depending upon your locale and your particular situation. The basic elements of the guidelines include hiring benchmarks. The new regulations require that contractors establish annual hiring benchmarks for protected veterans. Contractors must use one of 2 methods to establish their benchmarks. Contractors may choose to establish a benchmark equal to the national percentage of veterans in the civilian labor force, which is published and updated annually by OFCCP. Today, that target is 7%. Alternatively, contractors may establish their own benchmarks using certain data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Veterans Employment Training Service Employment and Training Administration, or VETS/ETA. It is also published by OFCCP. The data is posted on their benchmark database that's available on the Department of Labor's website. Data collection is the second category. The new regulations require that contractors document and update annually several quantitative comparisons for the number of veterans who apply for jobs and the number of veterans they hire. Having this data will assist contractors in measuring effectiveness of their outreach and recruitment efforts. The data must be maintained for 3 years to be used to spot trends. The third category is invitation to self-identify. This is a big one, and it helps you in multiple ways. It helps you establish your baseline. It causes you to be able to ask the question for a viable reason to all your employees. While most veterans are more than willing to identify themselves when asked, about 50% choose not to say something about their past service because they don't want to achieve some type of a perceived advantage over others. But if asked, generally over 90% are very willingly to share that information. Incorporation of the EO clause. The new regulations clarify that when listing their job openings, contractors must provide that information in a manner and format permitted by the appropriate state or local job service so that it can access and use the information to make the job listings available to job seekers. The next category is job listings themselves. The new regulations clarify that when listing their job openings, contractors must provide that information in a manner and format permitted by the appropriate state or local job service, so that it too can access and use the information to make the job listings available to job seekers. Finally, records access. The new regulations clarify that the OFCCP to review documents related to a compliance check or focused review, either on-site or off-site, at OFCCP's option. In addition, the new regulations require, upon request, to inform OFCCP of all formats which it maintains its records and provide them to OFCCP in whatever of those formats the OFCCP requests. Concluding, before your business seeks its first federal contract, you should consider these guidelines. If you're already a federal contractor, use the information that we just shared to review your business regulatory compliance, including some of those that are listed at the end of this briefing. Your next compliance evaluation could be sooner than you think. On the next chart, we provide some of those references on the guideline enhancements that can be immediately available to you. One is from the Small Business Administration, and the other two are from the Department of Labor. On the next chart, we discuss the 4 steps to building your program. So you might ask, how do we build a program and create some quick wins to encourage our company to take the next steps to bringing quality veteran talent into our organizations? Our recommendation is to consider this a straightforward 4-step that is also accompanied by a set of metrics that are reviewed by and senior executives on a routine basis. A program without oversight is sure to experience challenges, so be sure that you have a senior executive champion for this effort. They can help create vision and exposure for your efforts. Top cover in times of difficulty. Surveys, statistics, and C-suite leaders all point to the fact that veterans are peak performers. They often do not have time to build their knowledge and communication program to articulate why. You can be a key player in this process by assisting in this endeavor as you have your monthly or quarterly reviews of their metrics to help them understand how the programs are succeeding and what you're learning. Hilda Solis, the former U.S. Secretary of Labor, often stated that over 80% of all jobs in the private sector have a very close correlation to those in the military. Howard Schultz, the Starbucks CEO, goes on to say, hiring people is an art, not a science, and resumes can't tell you whether someone will fit into a company's culture. Schultz's suggestion that hiring is mostly art and that resumes don't adequately reflect the potential contribution of a prospective employee represents one of the most significant impediments to addressing the unemployment situation of veterans in this country. To be clear, leadership ability and the strong sense of mission that comes with military service are characteristics that are highly valued in a competitive business environment. However, by themselves, these generalizations are not enough to empower U.S. employers to move beyond art to science. The business case for bringing military talent into your structure is based upon multiple facts, not just rhetoric. Let me talk about those just for a moment. Our Defense Department produces leaders first, technicians second, and that leadership, professionalism, and the ability to quickly become technically qualified are paramount to the way we develop those forces. The U.S. military is recognized as having one of the best leadership development and professional career development programs in the world. Additionally, the all-volunteer force is based upon social values, trainability, physical fitness, and intellect. You might be interested to know that only 1 in 5 Americans actually qualify to be recruited into the military. This is a good litmus test for you as well, as it saves you steps in the hiring process. Then, as military folks enter the ranks, training always starts with leadership principles and practices. Leadership training continues throughout their career, and it's a very formal leadership development program, unlike anything in industry. Then, after the basics are established, they produce surgeons, scientists, engineers, program managers, photographers, technicians, and many other skilled workers, along with significant advantage of cross-cultural experiences. Today, many are receiving civilian certifications for the work that they do in the military and the training that they receive. As importantly, every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, and Coast Guard member are highly trainable in technology and have to master that technology very quickly. They have to maintain those certifications promoted. They're used to these standards. They thrive in this environment. It's part of their everyday life. Our recommendation is hire on talent and leadership capability first, and then train to certification and technology as necessary, and you'll never be saddened by the result. The business case is something every executive and board requires to invest. They also need the procedures to help the community comply with changing policy and contracting guidelines to protect their competitiveness in the government market and the civil sector. So step 1. On the next chart, we talk about assess, plan, and prepare. We've talked fairly extensively about federal and state guidelines, but we've not discussed tax benefits. Generally, you can earn a tax benefit of roughly $2,000 per veteran employee hired. Additionally, you can work with local workforce boards to claim on-the-job training benefits that pay a portion of the veteran's salary to help them become technically qualified on a specific aspect of their position. Oftentimes, you can see salary sharing for 6 months after hire as a part of this process. There are many other fiscally rewarding individual benefits that are available to some service members. They include the post-911 GI Bill. Most people understand that capability is available to them, but they don't realize that this benefit, valued at well over $100,000 of training, can be used directly to certify your new employees at no additional expense to the company. So if they need to have an A++ certification as part of their job, they can receive that training from the GI Bill. They also oftentimes have residual military or healthcare benefits depending upon how they left the military, if they were retired, if they were disabled, or in several other categories. And they also get relocation assistance. When they leave the military, the next move is at the behest of the military, and your company would not have to pay that bill. What many companies fail to do is establish both qualitative and quantitative metrics to measure the success of their programs. These should include comparative numbers for vets, National Guard, civilian non-vets, and pilot project goals, should you establish pilot projects, as well as technical qualifications and technical certifications. Another easily rectified shortfall of corporate programs is a basic model of skills, capabilities, and attributes that the company wishes to see in its new hires. In today's hyper-specialized job environment, you may want to target these needs to specific career paths or corporate specialties or geographic regions based on corporate need. Examples would include technical specialties of IT, logistics, and aerospace. all three are sufficiently different that you would probably want a different set of skills, capabilities, and attributes associated with each of those technical specialties. Also, in terms of leadership positions, program managers and executives require significantly different skills and capabilities than entry-level managers. Developing this type of a matrix can help you both justify why you're hiring veterans and explain it to your hiring managers and to your mid-level leadership that is trying to understand the value of your program to them and to the corporate performance. Finally, take a look at your mandatory requirements. Most mandatory requirements are designed to disqualify people due to the high number of electronic applications for every job posting. These often eliminate all military applicants as they don't have the mandatory experiential requirements, such as 2 years experience in driving a vehicle or other seemingly mundane requirements that don't particularly communicate well to military experience. Instead, we would recommend build fewer mandatory requirements and increase the desired capabilities and characteristics and attributes that you're looking for in your new employees. You can also use those to build a search protocol tool for those that self-identify as veterans. All of these capabilities give you an opportunity to find the best people that are capable of being trained towards any technical skill that you need. On the next chart, we talk about designing the hiring model itself in terms of how you adapt and how you apply. You've already begun optimizing your model at this point and are ahead of the game and most other employers if you considered the points on the last slide. Now, you should shift to applying a few basic change management practices. You can acknowledge this as a shift in culture in your company, and you have to understand that it will be reviewed as that by many people that work there. You need to acknowledge that you want to look at the whole person and their total life's experience by limiting it to specific technical capability. You want to help people understand that you want to start small, invest in a few hires, hire veterans for their overall total capability package and for their benefits and for what they bring to the workforce, not just for technical skill. Those technical skills can be taught, in most cases, very quickly, given that the veterans have had such experience to technology throughout their career. Finally, you can use additional assessment tools that are available to screen people and to show their true capabilities. Examples include professional, privately funded assessment tools that are available from for-profit companies as well as nonprofit companies. Just be sure that you get multiple bang for the buck with one assessment, as people get tired of taking this type of an assessment. So, for example, you want a personality profile, as well as a math, science, and reading comprehension assessment, all integrated in with their workplace preferences and how they choose to work into one assessment tool. They certainly exist in the for-profit sector, and they're very cost-effective. Then you can use military assessment tools, such as the ASVAB test that is taken by all military personnel when they first enter the military. We can provide some details on the ASVAB and the multiple categories there, but what you need to know is it tests across 9 different categories, everything to technology preparation, their ability to understand, their reading skills, and a whole host of other categories that is as that moment when they enter the military. Now, clearly those change as they go through training, but it is a good indicator for the type of skills that they are predetermined to do well in. State-funded options, such as the National Career Readiness Certification, or NCRC, that is also known as Work Keys Assessment in some states. Often these assessments are free or paid for by the government at a workforce board one-stop center, so it's at no cost to you. It gives you a good idea of their math, science, and comprehension scores and their pre-inclination towards technical fields. Then there are nonprofit assessment tools that are available from various associations including the National Society of Human Resource Professionals, or SHRM. Just find yourself an assessment tool that you think best works for you and apply it across all the personnel that you bring into the company. Because once you understand what someone's hardwired to do well in, it's much easier to determine fit and how they will best work within your company. Simply making this knowledge available to your company can make this program valuable. This is where you can shine. Enjoy the ride. Okay, step 2, leadership and corporate readiness. As you know, change management requires winning the leaders first, especially mid-level managers. Take the time and the risk of bringing them up to speed with your plans. Get them involved. Take their recommendations where you can. Frankly, use the topics that we have presented here in this briefing as a starting point. When educating the hiring managers and corporate leaders, consider the following conversation points. Nationally, the military has enjoyed the #1 spot in trustworthiness and respect out of all professions in the United States. The military has a rigorous selection process to enter the all-volunteer force. Recruits and officers must accept a high-risk profession. They must pass aptitude tests, be physically fit, be drug-free, and be willing to experience frequent moves that benefit the organization, not the individual. In short, the organization comes first. The individual comes second. That's part of their culture. It's part of their DNA. So most will understand some level of value, but they do not necessarily understand why they're changing their recruiting program. They may not understand the type of positions or career paths that you may be targeting. And sometimes the perceived value of this veterans program to the bottom line fiscal returns on the company is equally misunderstood. This sometimes leads to a feeling of being threatened by this new change in the recruiting programs of the company. People might feel fearful of the impact on their jobs, of career progression. They may have their own stereotypes of what a military person will be like in the workplace. Some of these may be valid, some may not. You just have to be aware that those situations are there. Few will understand the military culture. While most understand through experience with someone in their family how the military has changed their individual family member, they really don't have a lot of understanding of what their past career capabilities were and how they applied to their training regimen. Even and the effects of war, of trauma, and their disabilities. Most importantly, you'll find that most Americans in the workplace, they want to learn more. They want to feel involved. And they perceive that they are part of something special when they see their company start a veterans hiring program. They just need to understand it and understand how it affects them. They like to be around a company that's helping warriors and the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that fight our wars and protect our way of life. On the next chart, we talk about step 2, leader and corporate readiness. There are a number of steps you can take when preparing to recruit and also to ensure retention. After all, you don't want to go to the trouble of creating a baseline to understand your current military population, recruit more, spend more on training dollars, and then lose some of them because your corporate climate is unfavorable to their interests. Simple steps to improve retention may include building optimization search algorithms in public job boards to draw out more military candidates. Using your assessment tools, you can then sort those candidates to determine which ones are best suited to the type of categories of employment that you're looking for. Being able to articulate capabilities and attributes by pure technical capability will further enable this process. You can identify hiring events that focus on virtual interviews by just showing up at job fairs. The Hiring Our Heroes events are always attractive and they're very localized. Using their job board to find clients and conduct virtual interviews is very user-friendly. We have already discussed post-traumatic stress, but show that you are not fearful of it. Encourage them that you have or are building programs to be supportive of their needs, offer flex time to attend medical appointments in emergencies, and are overall supportive of their transition. Your leader training programs will expose hiring managers to more and more military lingo, more acronyms, so that they can talk in the effective terms that military folks hold so dear. Because, you see, we hold them accountable to learn the new system and the new acronyms. It seems only fair that we should spend a little bit of time understanding the culture from which they left. Veterans will truly respect that in every aspect of what you do. These opportunities also help portray what's involved in those jobs and provide questions to draw out what the recruit may have really done in the military, vice what their specialty was. You see, in today's military, we're deploying people for many, many different purposes than which we hired them. And you'll find that oftentimes over a third of their career is spent doing something that has nothing to do with their career specialty for which they were hired. It shows their agility and their flexibility, but oftentimes those things don't show up in their MOS translators and other type tools that you may find out there to articulate the kind of skills that the person has in their particular skill specialty. Finally, advanced search tools with a revised set of experiential categories will turn up more options from electronic search engines as well. On the next chart, we talk about step 3, recruiting. Step 3 focuses on creating win-wins that attract veterans and National Guard members. We discussed the idea of building categories of unstated needs from both hiring managers and the recruits themselves is a great step. An example is on this chart. It draws out the problems that the company is experiencing with current employees, veteran or otherwise, and gets things out in the open. It creates dialogue. It shows your employees, your hiring managers, what it is that you hold dear. It shows that there's a correlation between that and what veterans are looking for, and it would be very easy to add a third category of what your non-military service members in the community are also looking for. This win-win created by is really interesting. It helps managers discuss their challenges and also helps them to understand how the military has had a great deal of challenges in high-stress situations, and they've learned to deal with it and to win. This kind of a conversation opens minds. It helps people see value not only in veterans but in the entire workforce. The bullets you see here reflect what we've learned in our interactions with vets, leaders, local chambers of commerce, manufacturing entities, and typical company executives. They may not be specifically or scientifically significant to your particular arena, but they resonate with all parties that we've talked to. Build your own list from your online interactions, from your blogs, your website chatter, emails, and person-to-person communications. This list is just our experience, but you'll find it to be a great start to have the conversation and to further enhance something that's more applicable to your particular company. As I mentioned, veterans truly respect those that take the time to try to understand them. That's their number one concern as they reintegrate back into America, is that people really don't understand what they've been through, the challenges they've faced, or what's ahead of them. It's a very lonely feeling. Military service provides a sense of purpose that's often lacking in industry, and any amount of purpose that you can add to their transition further enhances their performance as well as those around them. There's a bond of a sense of trust that they experience in the military. They miss that immensely when entering industry. The smallest gesture often causes people to start to connect. So take the time to do this with your teams, with or without a veterans program. It will save you tens of thousands of dollars in training, workplace disruptions, disciplinary actions, and unemployment benefits. Helping people understand what's valued in specific capability traits is good for all concerned. On the next chart, we continue step 3 in your recruiting roadmap. This is where all we have discussed starts coming together and starts to become real fun. Roadmaps are all important if you're going into uncharted territory. Take the time to think through your plan, to write it down, to walk through it with your leaders and get their buy-in. As you would imagine, you need a start point, a rollout plan, a series of landmarks to know you're heading in the right direction, and decision points for your leaders to gauge continued growth and to guide their continuing investment. And I use the word investment because that can be your personal time that you would be doing other things with where you're not involved in this veterans program. So it's not necessarily monetarily, but it's all types of activity associated with this program. Clearly, this is ever more important if you're under the gun, if you have limited funds, and you're short on time and the goodwill of your leaders. Let folks know what you expect, and they'll amaze and astound you with their ability to exceed your expectations. We mentioned DEVRA and OFCCP requirements already. This means asking future hires to self-identify themselves, then take time to ask what they think, what they see, and what they might do to improve the policies and procedures that currently exist within the company, as well as to improve your corporate approach towards recruiting more veterans and National Guard members like themselves. So, set objectives. While not directive, typically you will see start point minimum goals of around 7% based on OFCCP guidelines. Larger government-oriented companies with active veteran recruiting programs often exceed 25% of new hire members being veterans or those that have served in some way in the military. You should also consider gaining commitment to goals by your mid-managers as well as your senior leaders. Because as you know, mid-manager buy-in is probably the most important aspect to making a program succeed. Further consider putting those goals into your corporate performance evaluation criteria for those not just in human resources, but also for all hiring managers in the company. All this lines up with federal guidelines, but it's voluntary for the most part. The last point we'd say in terms of your objectives, start small. Take a look at what parts of the company may best fit those with military skills and attributes. You might use operations types, action-oriented work, dynamic environments. There's lots of change in areas where you see particular problems in leadership and performance, or areas that have current disciplinary problems. Generally speaking, you'll see those settle down as more military members head into the workforce. There are over 40,000 organizations nationwide that have something to do with veterans and military families. They're there for you. Open the door to those that serve locally and talk with them. The next chart provides even more on this particular area. So on this chart, recruiting pools and finding qualified veteran candidates, we find that the best way to leverage your limited resources is to gain a much better understanding of what's available to you. Another great advantage for encouraging self-identification inside the company is referrals. Your own employees may be the very best recruiters because they know the company. They know your challenges, they know your strengths, and they know their acquaintances. And they don't want to work with someone who's going to drag them down. They want to work with people that are team players and are going to help them perform better in the company. They, in fact, could make the best match possible to determine fit as good as anyone out there. Ask them to find qualified talent. Create incentive programs to find people they know that may be in transition or underemployed. Just make sure that incentives and disincentives are balanced and reasonable. Make sure they bring you the best talent and give the opportunity to everyone in the company to participate. Conducting your own open house is intended to bring providers and veterans together is a great start. Just do your homework first. Get to know the big players and get to know the innovators. Frequently, they're not the same parties. They may not even be aware of one another. Bring them together, broker a deal on how they can help you find the right people for your company, how they can help you build a better employee assistance program, how to get the right advice from each of them from day to day, and generally, how to get them involved. They will deeply appreciate it, and it's free labor for you. Technical and manufacturing companies find great success with gaining support from interns and volunteers from local universities and technical schools. All parties win, and special projects get completed with real-world challenges. Additionally, nonprofit organizations that assist veterans are generally called Veteran Service Organizations, or VSOs. You've heard of the large ones. Some of those are identified on the chart. but generally, you've not heard of the younger programs and the innovators. By submitting a call for papers on anything from Craigslist to the local newspaper to online opportunities, presents an opportunity to find out who's solving the kind of challenges that you see in the workforce. Give you an idea of what they might be able to do to help you. The veteran service organizations all have magazines and newsletters as well, and often they conduct their own job fairs and have their own job sites. Each of these present opportunities for you to interact and to create a team spirit in the community. These may be of some value, especially the job fairs, but they can also prove to be a time-consuming endeavor. Again, we'll continue to reinforce the idea of virtual job fairs and virtual interviews as the key to success on optimizing your time and the energy of your hiring managers. Then we'll discuss student veterans associations. They are opening chapters at an incredible rate around the nation. Some are good, some are not. It makes good sense to gain access to these groups. Talk to your local community colleges, your local universities, your local tech schools, and see what's happening in their Student Veterans Association in their particular realm. Invite the group to your headquarters, to your production center, or invite them to a seminar that you're holding. See what's on their mind, get an idea of who's graduating and what they're studying. You might get access to yet another set of referrals that you hadn't previously anticipated. Most will welcome your interest, and you may find them willing to bring a large group together for a seminar on your corporate needs. Finally, surveys indicate that veteran-specific job boards are the #1 desired tool veterans look for during transition. Two exceptional ones are listed here: the National Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. government sites listed on the right-hand side of this chart offer great access. You can target your search to over 1 million former or current military members on these sites. There are others, of course, both commercial or private, for-profit and non-for-profit, but most simply, import the job searchers from other sites. These two sites have a sophisticated search engine and filter set that help you search the capabilities and attributes you're looking for and to increase the likelihood of a good fit. Use them to your advantage. Okay, step 4 on the next chart, retention and expansion. The fourth step is where the program starts to really take off and grow with its own support system. It's what makes people stay when offered high competitor or when problems arise. Clearly, you want to encourage stability, retention, and minimize training expenses in the recruiting process. You want to keep the quality employees that you're able to recruit. It sounds easy, right? As you know, not always. Wages and benefits have been held in check for the last 6 to 8 years. People are hungry to catch up. Competition for high-quality people is heating up in many areas of the country. Military transitioners know the military structure, processes, systems, standards, and other more disciplined manners of developing their careers. While they may tire of it, they soon realize that it may be the most developed leadership and support infrastructure for developing a career anywhere in the world. However, they left the military for a reason. It usually relates to stability or more reasonable work hours, because of disabilities, because of family separation, or sometimes working conditions. Each person has their individual reason. They may have some lingering health issues, but many have the programs available to pay for them. They just need the ability to attend appointments from time to time and gain normalcy in their lives. Your corporate programs, if designed the right way, provide this opportunity, and it can overcome offers from other companies at higher wage rates if they think that their quality of life is better where they are. You'll find that oftentimes younger military personnel are not joiners initially, but once they get out, they seem to miss several things in the military, including several items such as they miss a sense of purpose and belonging. Oftentimes they cite that as their top concern as they go to work in industry. They don't see that same sense of belonging and that same mission focus. Career counseling and visible career development paths are the second most cited option that they miss. They're used to having a squad leader or an NCO that guides them. In industry, we call that a coach, of course. that they can turn to that enables them to talk to someone about how they're doing, about how to get things done without offending others. They're very much aware of civilian stereotypes, and they want to fit in. They're usually aware of the perception of their impatience and crisis management thinking that causes them to get things done. They just don't always see the impact of doing so in a new culture. It concerns them. Having a coach helps. They often seek positions higher on the corporate ladder than those that civilians perceive that they are qualified for, and out of necessity, they accept those lesser positions. But retaining them requires some kind of leader development program that will help them see their opportunity to grow quickly if they fit in and they perform. It doesn't necessarily need to be a different one than others may receive, but it needs to be visible and understood by them. Along lines of visibility, we see commitment to education, veteran philanthropy efforts, and mentions in corporate strategy or vision documents that are actually followed. So if you're going to have a veterans program, make sure that it permeates the depth and breadth of the organization and that veterans can see themselves in it. All these things complete the retention picture. It's far beyond salary and benefits. Addressing these things in the open, having veteran groups, outreach efforts, and supports local charities involved, or even the freedom to help the community in natural disasters are all important options that are both good for the company image and, of course, good for the veterans themselves. A little goes a long way and will keep folks happy and committed to the organization for a very long time. Growing your program through outreach and community program fits with this philosophy nicely. You'll find that military members and veterans come to you without being recruited. They find that they're interested in your company for what you do, for what you stand for, and for what you mean. Qualified recruits will gravitate toward you. Awards will follow. Pride will increase. Encourage your suppliers to be an extension of your programs is a cost savings to them and enables you to promote wellness throughout your supply chain. You can make your programs, recruiting efforts, all available to your suppliers. This in turn builds up and down loyalty and promotes good practices throughout the organization and can also improve quality control. This completes the detailed 4-step program. It will take time, courage, determination, and personal investment. It is, however, very much worth it, both financially and intrinsically. So the next 2 charts provide an abbreviated start plan that will help you harvest some quick wins and generate momentum. You'll find that it flows in the same manner as we discussed with the detailed program, but with immediate executable steps that you can get on right away. So on the next chart, early quick wins. So now that we've done the thorough discussion of what you might want to include in your program, we can now create a simplified project to get you started. We're not necessarily patient in the business sector. We often move from crisis to crisis, not able to develop the kind of detailed plans that we know we need. We just don't have the time to develop them. Rather, we have to live in the moment and satisfy the bear at the door today. However, understanding the basics, the way we just discussed them, makes it easier to create a series of quick wins to gauge corporate commitment and to show that the leaders are serious about this hiring endeavor. As with all things, we do a quick assessment first. We determine who's best suited for this effort and what kind of fit that we think they will create within the company. We should encourage self-identification. Where do we have veterans performing well in the company? Will they volunteer to help you build your program? Why have they done well? Understand those best practices. Why do they think they would have value today more than when they arrived? What would they change today in the programs that they see across the company? All of those things go into your quick assessment. Then, transparency. Everybody plays. Get leaders to show their colors and help you generate a message they can buy into. Get them to set the bar with a set of reasonable, well-informed objectives, but make it aggressive enough to push folks a little, to create energy. Look for volunteers and identify assets that you have that you may be interested or available to you, both inside and outside the company. Advertise your leader's intent. Be deliberate. Don't oversell. Show your corporate interest and long-term commitment, and make sure it's not perceived as a fad investment, but something that's in the long-term interest of the company that the company is going to stick with. Next, put someone with credibility in charge. Don't put the most junior person in the company in the chair, especially if they have little or no military and corporate credentials. Have this person report, at least in some capacity, to the CEO, COO, or CFO, and give them the opportunity to talk about the metrics and the progress of the program in large forums. Finally, open the doors to information flow. Request input. Be responsive and acknowledge success. Put your existing veteran talent to work. Let them know what you're thinking. Get their listen, pause, and reflect. Incentivize their involvement, and you'll see great things happen. On the next chart, the second quick wins chart, you'll find that as with all things, you need advocates. Put together a simple base plan with goals, objectives, dates, return on investment, goals, all in layperson terms. Ask your advocates to take a look. Create an advisory board. Encourage initial discretion until you have corporate approval, but frankly no longer than 30 days before you go public and expand your input spectrum. This is not failing at transparency, rather it's collaboration and confidence building inside the team until you decide to go public. Then reach out to your community service organizations. Let them know what you're thinking. Show resolve and commitment as you solicit their input. Be sure to talk with Workforce Board one-stop development centers as well as community colleges. That will be very helpful and have a wealth of information on resources and research. Oftentimes this can be done in one meeting, as they often come together anyway, and you might be able to be incorporated into one of their standard meetings. Throughout the process, have a working group internal to the company that gets a chance to report to corporate site executives as a team. It will establish visibility and accountability. It will attract volunteers. It may also provide top cover when and if things get tough. Change is always hard. Bear no mistake. This will be a change management process to you, and you'll have to address it accordingly. But having top cover always helps. So this pretty much wraps up this presentation. On the next chart, we've given you an opportunity to see some quality references that are there and gives you a chance to do some of your own research. Of course, your Department of Labor, Economic Development, State Veteran Services Department, and Employment Commission, as well as other and state federal agencies, have viable study guides that may be of assistance as well. Thank you for your time and your energy. Your workforce is going to be better for it, and your company will enjoy it. America will be stronger for your efforts as well. You can count on the fact that your company will be more prosperous and a greater place to work, all due to your efforts. Please feel free to contact the National Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Hiring Our Heroes organization, if you have any further questions or would like additional information. Thank you so very much for your time and your energy. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.